What is dyslexia? That question is burning in the minds of parents whose children are struggling with reading. On this video, I will cover what dyslexia is and what it's not, and I will answer all your questions about this condition that is preventing people from learning to read. My name is Brad, and welcome to our Dyslexia 101 channel. I'm coming to you from Dyslexia 101, where our mission is simple. We want to help as many children as possible who suffer from dyslexia become competent readers. Children with dyslexia can learn to read. There is help for your child who is struggling with reading. Today, I will first discuss generally what dyslexia is, and then I'll cover what it feels like to be a child with dyslexia. And then finally, I will talk about the challenges that parents have with a dyslexic child. There are a bunch of misperceptions out there about dyslexia, and we're here to clear all that up. Dyslexia is best described as a neurological difference that affects a person's ability to learn to read. Most people acquire language skills and learn to speak in what appears to be an effortless process. For example, if I were asking you to close your eyes and imagine a small boy sitting under a tree reading a book with a babbling stream nearby and next to a field of wildflowers, you almost immediately visualize that scene that I just described in your head. That process of hearing the spoken language and visualizing it is a very powerful feature of our brains. As most young children learn to talk, they inherently develop that ability to associate a word with an object. Many children will also create a mental image of that object. When a very young child sees a dog and they learn that what they're seeing is called a dog, then from that point forward, when you ask that child to think about a dog, they will visualize a dog. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? It may be a big dog, a little dog, a brown dog, a black dog. But the point is that is the power of the brain, that child has its own concept of a dog, and that picture that they have in their brain is their own picture. Of course, that gets expanded if you start talking about different kinds of dogs. After exposure to a black puppy with white spots, the child's concept of the word dog changes, and their ability to visualize it is expanded too. People who have difficulties learning to read also have difficulties recognizing that words are made up of individual sounds and that those sounds are represented by letters. Struggling readers are not able to translate the letters of words into their sounds very efficiently. Translating letters into their sounds is called decoding. The written form of the language is a code in which the letters represent sounds, and learning to read requires that a person know the relationship between those letters and the sounds they make. Some people cannot do this very well. Their brains are built a little differently than people that learn to read more easily. People who study the brain and reading have found a couple areas in the brain that need to be strengthened before the person will become a competent reader. Most people who develop good reading skills can visualize what they're reading. Think back to a book that you've read that takes you away to some far-off place or time. Many people love to read for that very reason, to carry them somewhere beyond the stress and pressure of their daily lives. But people with dyslexia cannot do that. They do not have the ability to efficiently read written words. In other words, they're getting tripped up in the details and mechanics of reading. And therefore, they cannot put that mental image in their brain of what they just read. Learning to read with the English language is also very challenging, and much more challenging if a person cannot decode words very well. Reading becomes labored and stressful, and that takes away the enjoyment from the process of reading. Scientists who study dyslexia have found that certain parts of the brain are not processing reading-related information like the brains of good readers do. This can actually be measured, and scientists can see neurons firing in certain areas of the brain for people who can read. And remember that reading English is hard. Some letters represent more than one sound, and some sounds are represented by more than one letter. For example, the long E sound can be written in 9 different ways. And the letter C can represent the S sound or the K sound. The English writing system can be a bit tricky. We all remember hearing that from our childhood, right? It's true. Learning to read and write English is hard. And people with dyslexia cannot read, and that's the end, right? No, that's not right. People with dyslexia can become competent readers. With the proper instruction and process, people with dyslexia can learn the foundational skills and become competent readers. Not only can young children be helped, but people of all ages can be helped to learn to read. The reason we focus on young children is to be able to tackle the problem as early as possible. But we actually helped a 63-year-old grandmother learn how to read for the first time in her life. We've helped thousands of people with dyslexia learn to become competent readers, and we want to help millions more. There is no quick fix, but there is hope for your child. Now let's step back for a minute and talk about how a child with dyslexia feels. Many children blame themselves for having difficulties learning to read. They often report that they feel stupid or not as smart as their friends who seem to be learning to read much easier. Nothing could be further from the truth. There have been many studies over the years to completely debunk this premise. In fact, many famous, smart, and successful people have dyslexia. But when a young child is in the classroom and can't follow along, they start to fall farther and farther behind. And this is where the feelings of I'm stupid start to develop. They feel inferior to other students who are learning to read and are starting to read books. One of the worst fears most children with dyslexia have is being called to the front of the class to read out loud. They feel embarrassed. They act out. They try to make jokes to distract from their failure to read, and they will do anything to keep from being exposed. In fact, many researchers have pointed to dyslexia as an underpinning of behavior and attention problems. When young children cannot read, they're looked upon as inferior and sometimes even bullied by their fellow students. Children with dyslexia start to draw inward and develop poor self-confidence. And as this goes on and on, older children with dyslexia can develop serious behavior problems. Kids in high school often drop out because of dyslexia. And if they grow into adulthood without addressing their reading difficulties, then adults often start to feel inferior. Many times they have no real options to attend college or even a trade school. Reading is required for most careers, and people with dyslexia have limited career options. So how do parents of dyslexic children feel, and what options do they have? Every parent wants their child to be successful in life. Even when their children are infants, parents imagine what future their children will have. What careers will they take? Will they be a doctor, a lawyer, a fireman, a school teacher, or a scientist? Nearly all careers require competent reading skills. Parents feel terrible when they receive a note or letter from their child's teacher that says their child is not reading up to grade level. And unfortunately, schools are not often equipped to deal with dyslexia, and parents are left wondering what to do. The first step in helping your child deal with dyslexia is to take a dyslexia assessment. This assessment should tell you exactly where your child is in their reading ability. It should also be standardized against other children of the same age and gender. And finally, it should offer a detailed report that explains exactly how a child is performing and what specific skills that child is struggling with. Fortunately, here at Dyslexia 101, we offer an assessment that can accurately measure a child's reading ability and does provide that score that tells you exactly how your child is performing. And best of all, it is completely free to use. Just go to dyslexia101.com and click Take the Test. As a final takeaway, I want to leave you with a strong belief that your child can be helped. They can become a competent reader. People with dyslexia are capable of becoming a competent reader. And there is no time like the present to find out if your child has dyslexia and start to take action to help them. Just go to dyslexia101.com and click Take the Test. If you found this content to be helpful in your quest to learn more about dyslexia, please help get the word out by subscribing to our channel. Click the like button on this video and leave comments to tell us and the community about your dyslexia story.